right now, I will be answering two questions. First is, are there hindrances to integrating climate data into the process of planning or into the planning process? And second is, what are the gaps in terms of integrating climate data or integrating climate adaptation into local government planning? So again, I am EnPTinio, Filipino Environmental Planner, and I hope to help local governments, especially low-income local governments, create climate resilient plans through content and through partnerships. So, question first, on to the first question. Basahin ko yung kanyang tanong, yung Tagalog. Ilan sa mga nabanggit na hadlang or barriers, bakit nahihirapan maisama sa planning ng mga datos tungkol sa klima ay institutional and leadership barriers and technicality ng climate data? May mga naghadlang din po ba sa pag-integrate ng climate data sa proseso ng pagpaplan? So, I have been part of some local government planning processes, the President Plan, drafting the comprehensive planning plan, the municipality of Tiwi, completing the ecological profile of the municipality of Bakakay, and also I worked with the Star Endowment Center in various research projects related to climate, and I saw there, or in my experience, I believe that one of the greatest barriers to integrating climate data into planning is finding relevance to the stakeholders or the policymakers involved. We know that in terms of knowledge, there are people or experts who see the urgency of the climate crisis. So it's important to understand also na yung isa sa mga napakalaking tumatak sa isip ko when I attended one event or when I have organized one event for Oscar and Lopez Center is that the psychological aspect or the sociological aspect of climate change is towards relevance to the stakeholders. So, what do you think about that? Relevance to the stakeholders. When I say relevance, climate change should be, our stakeholders should relate to what we are saying about climate change. So, ano ba yung mga ibig sabihin ng relevance? In terms of the impacts, we cannot use examples from foreign global examples that are not contextualized to our local context. For example, isa sa mga tumatak sa isip ko in the social science colloquium of Australian Center of Climate Change is the use of polar bears in terms of climate change adaptation in the Philippines or climate change communication in the Philippines. We cannot do that because there are no polar bears in the Philippines. We don't even have snow. So, it's important to contextualize climate change impacts in terms of what we are experiencing. So, floods, landslides, especially storm surges. We experienced this communication gap, leadership gap, was experienced, or technical gap, actually, was experienced when the event of Yolanda dahil sa hindi naintindihan ng mga tao. Ibig sabihin ng storm surge, nahirapan yung mga leaders to mobilize the evacuation. So, that's one hindrance in terms of planning, enabling the climate data to be not only understood, but to be felt and to have an emotional impact on the stakeholders, nakakarinig ng message natin or the gusto natin pagplanuhan. Again, you can hear me, please send me a smile so that I know that you are receiving value from this broadcast. Again, that question is, may naging barriers ba sa pag-integrate ng climate into the planning process? And yes, my personal opinion, the key barrier in terms of integrating climate data into planning is relevance, establishing relevance. So, the second question I hope to answer right now is, may mga naiisip daw ba na proseso or may mga pagkukulang ba sa pagpaplano na dapat naman? Are there gaps in terms of planning or may sound? May mga naisip po ba kung proseso? Di ba pa pagkukulang na maaaring isama sa pagpaplano? So, my answer is helping low-income local governments finance climate adaptation through less technical means. So, paano yun? So, one way na ginagawa rin ng ibang non-government organizations, non-profit organizations, is advocating for climate change adaptation through art, music, and writing. So, I think that way is less expensive than infrastructure, less expensive than continuous drills for flooding or fire. However, it should be complemented also, or should be done in parallel with more technical, more engineering, and more social interventions. But I believe that communicating climate adaptation plans to the affected population is one aspect of planning that is sometimes disregarded or least priority. Kasi nga, nandun pa lang tayo sa state in our local governments, that our local governments are still building their technical capacity in terms of integrating climate change adaptation. Kahit na 10 years na yung Climate Change Act, kailan lang ba na-integrate yung CCABRR into CLP? 2014 lang nilabas ng HLURB yung kanilang guidebook. In PSF, hindi rin masyadong ma-access because of technical, lack of technical knowledge and technical capability ng mga local governments who need to access it. So, communicating the climate change adaptation plans, the climate action plans, is very important. Not only in terms of public hearings, but also in terms of the implementation, monitoring, and evaluations. Pagdating sa monitoring and evaluation, mga tao ba, halimbawa, ay tumitigil na sa pagbuo ng mga bahay sa mga danger zones, sa mga coastal areas that are exposed to storm surges or to sea level rise, or tinataasan na ba nila yung kanilang mga bahay dahil sa kanilang experience ng mga flooding. Or another way is, halimbawa, are people really integrating yung halimbawa yung pag-babay or even the government policy ay totoong naka-align sa pag-babay, pagkakaroon ng walkable cities, and pag-reduce ng fossil fuel emissions dahil yun ang nasa climate change action plans nila. Mag-mitigate o pagbawas ng mga nilalabas natin usok at greenhouse gases. So, those things are important, I believe, in terms of integrating the climate data into planning. Kasi you cannot talk if you don't have the words. And the words should be grounded in data. And you cannot talk data kasi mukha kang computer. Diba? You should talk about the data through the benefits, through the costs, and again, through the risks of climate change and the changing and its impacts. Hindi mo pwedeng sabihin na tataas lang yung sea level ng ganito. Ang dapat conversation is hanggang saan ano yung mga lugar maaari tamaan, ano yung magiging effect nito sa mga communities na nandun, lalo na yung mga vulnerable and the poor. So, may mga pagkukulang ba or gaps? I believe in the local governments as with all, yung mga mas vulnerable, ang kailangan is communicating the effects and the impacts and the benefits as well, climate change adaptation. Na kapag kayo po ay umalis sa lugar na ito o lumipat ng bahay, mas magiging maganda yung inyong buhay dahil hindi na kayo mahadlangan din sa development ninyo dahil hindi na kayo lagi babahatin or wala kayong threat ng sea level rise. So, yung mga ganong bagay ang kailangan ma-convey to affected communities but also with the proper social and environmental safeguards. So, resettlement is a good action plan in terms of removing people from or removing the exposed population, but it's important that their livelihood and housing are not sacrificed. So, yun yung challenge. Challenge na nga na magtayo ka ng bahay. Talo pa naging challenge dahil yung mga lugar kung saan may mga tao, coastal areas at that or sa paligid ng mga central business districts ay bahain or exposed to the threat sea level rise. O kung hindi man, these are water-stressed areas, mga lugar na mahirap sa tubig or maaaring mahirap sa tubig dahil sa rainfall projections. So, yun. I've answered 2 questions about the use of climate data and city planning. Again, the first question I answered is, are there barriers in terms of integrating climate data into the planning process? My own experience, I believe climate data is being integrated into our planning process, but the relevance of this integration is still one thing. So, yun na, communication and relevance to the affected stakeholders should be emphasized. And secondly, may mga pagkukulang or gaps. Again, yun na, ang pinaka-masa sa isip ko is communicating how these adaptation strategies, how these actions can really benefit the affected population. Na kapag sila umalis sa lugar na yun, nag-relocate, hindi ma-affectan ng livelihood at magiging mas ligtas sila. Dahil yung kanilang lugar na tinitirahan ngayon ay to halimbawa sea level rise or flooding. So, again, this is part 2 of me answering questions from my former student about the use of climate data in municipal and city planning. Check out my previous video last time on the use of climate data. It's also up on YouTube. And again, happy anniversary of the lockdown. So, March 15, 2020 started this pandemic lockdown, and I hope it ends well, quick, kasi we hope to have a new normal sana. So, yun, if you have any questions about climate data, municipal planning or city planning, please message me or check out my content at EnPTinio.com. See you on Thursday for